But you or I, we can't do that. They don't know who we are. And so we don't go that route. We go the very strategic route. We go and we send individual pitches.
All right, guys, in today's episode, I have a great guest with me here with a very inspiring story and also some great tactical advice that can really get some serious attention to your business. Welcome to High-End Client Acquisition Podcast. My name is Marian. I'm your host, and this show is here to teach you how to attract your dream clients on autopilot in 30 days or less. Each week, I bring you a guest or a strategy that can help you take your business to the next level. Don't forget, you can always get the episodes in your inbox or messenger at clientacquisitionpodcast.com. In today's episode, I have a great guest with me here with a very inspiring story and also some great tactical advice that can really get some serious attention to your business. Andrew, thanks a lot, brother, for being on the show today. For people that don't know you personally or don't know Leveraged Influence, can you share with us what's your story and how did you get started into the PR and media space?
Yeah. So one, thank you for having me on the show. And so quick backstory, I'll do like a less than 2-minute overview. Prostitution, war, suicide, and murder are 4 things I experienced by the time I was 25 years old. And it's because my mother was a prostitute and a stripper. We were raised in a really rough upbringing. To escape my childhood, I joined the Army, served a year over in Iraq, where I served as the lead gunner of all convoys. I returned home from war, and shortly after that, I attempted to take my own life with pills. It was because of a combination of my childhood and military experience. Those traumas coming back to haunt me. I overcame that. Luckily, didn't succeed at that. And then I got out of the Army, and a few months after I got out of the Army, my mother murdered her husband while he was sleeping. She asked me to help frame him for the murder, or frame someone else for the murder she had committed. I said no. A few years later, I testified against her in court where she was sentenced to life in prison. And the reason I share that story is that all leads into PR. In 2013, I heard about veteran suicides in the United States, over 22 a day, which is a very high number for the low amount of veterans that we have. And it clicked for me that I wanted to share my story of overcoming adversity, of resiliency, of everything of my life to give these other veterans from all branches hope and know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But I had no idea how to get my story in front of those people. And I didn't know marketing. I didn't know Facebook advertising. I didn't know anything about business at all. And so the only way I knew how to get my story out there was to go to the people that were already talking about the story, which is the news. I did a YouTube video in a horribly lit kitchen, sent that video out to the media, and it got picked up. And I spent the next 3 years traveling the world as one of the most requested speakers by the United States government, and was able to be featured in over 75 global media outlets in those 3 years. And that was with no PR experience, nothing. I just realized the power of PR. It helped me save people's lives. And when I noticed that, it made me want to get into this industry to help other people get their message spread out so that they can impact the world the way I was able to.
Wow, man. So a couple things. Number one, thank you for your service and everything that you've done. Number two is I really appreciate you opening up and talking. I know you've shared this story a couple of times in different media outlets, but hearing it directly from you, it has a huge impact, just like thinking of the things that you've had to go through. But of course, at the end of the day, knowing that you were able to push through and actually really get to the point that where you are today and who you are and what you do. But ultimately, it's just, I'm literally, you left me with no words. So thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for sharing that with me and my audience. Going back, maybe when you realized, all right, your story, it's definitely something huge, and it made I'm pretty sure it made a huge impact in the way that you looked at life in general and the way that you looked at things and the way that you appreciate the life that you have today. And I've seen recently, I think, a couple of posts from you, and that really made me think and understand that so many times I think, and I know the whole interview it's geared around PR, but you really made some great points in the past couple of posts where you said, because you are in this space and you've seen and you've helped so many people with sharing their stories and doing so many different things. I guess that makes me and I'm pretty sure you get this question so many times, somebody that doesn't have, a story, probably not even 1% of what you just shared with us, and trying to look at it from a positive standpoint in terms of, all right, that story impacted you so much, both in a personal and professional level. But when let's say you have a customer or you have a student, right? Because you also teach what you do to other people, and somebody that comes up to you and says, Andrew, all right, but as much as I want to put myself into a story, maybe my story is not as appealing as I want to be to editors or to contributors or to PR in general. What do you say back to that?
I say that's what all entrepreneurs face, is imposter syndrome, right? I think we all face that in every aspect of business. Am I good enough for this high ticket sale? Am I good enough for this meeting with this big influencer? Am I good enough for the media? The question is never, is my story good enough? Is, am I good enough? Am I interesting enough to these people? And the reality is the only person that controls whether you're interesting enough or not is yourself. So it's not, no one has to have a story like mine, right? My story is crazy, but there are people that have much worse stories than I have, and have overcome a lot more adversity than I have. But I think what we get too lost in the comparison mode of, well, they've been through worse, or this person went through this, or I haven't succeeded as much as this person, so no one's going to listen to me. It's all about the way you share that message and you share the story. And the best way to become media worthy, right, where people want to share your story, is to become transparent. Too many, like right now with social media and everything, everybody makes their lives look amazing, right? No one talks about real life anymore, about real struggle, foreclosure, divorce, child custody battles, negative in the bank account, can't pay the electric bill, all these sacrifices that you're making for your dream. But you're not sharing it because you're concerned that people won't do business with you because you're not successful. So you have to put on this facade and not share the truth. And reality is, right now, the most media-worthy story is the transparent one. It's the people being honest about where they are, where they were, and how they're overcoming those adversity.
No, and I love the way that you actually said that, because, like, number one, you said something really powerful and really true. Like a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this too. Like so many times we look at Instagram and we all know that, not all the pictures on the beach and not all the, all the videos in the Bahamas on the yacht and all those things, right, are not necessarily real. Like yes, it's true. A lot of people, are travel influencers or travel vloggers or whatever, but it's not as glamorous as most of the influencers wanted to look like, right? So when you say transparency is the best thing, you mean by documenting the journey or documenting what you do or the results that you've had or whatever the situation may be, if it's business or not? Because that gets me basically to my next question is, do you need an incredible result, like a business result? Do you need something to be, to have a huge impact in a professional way, or just your story as, I don't know, maybe just a regular person that just was able to overcome some sort of obstacle is good enough for the media? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, it depends on the media outlet and the story angle that you're going after. Obviously, if you're teaching a specific tactic or skill or strategy, you need to have results to back up whatever you're claiming, right? Right now, everybody's claiming they have the best marketing strategy, the newest thing, the newest that, and everybody's saying that. Problem is none of it's backed by proof. And the best proof you can provide is not just what you've made happen for a customer, but it's proof backed by data, statistics, research, government facilities, things that are proven outside of yourself. Just because you helped a customer achieve, 20 media outlets doesn't mean that customer B can achieve the same results. So it's got to be backed by scientific proof or data. But whenever I talk about PR, I talk about strategic PR. And there's a difference between getting on the news to get that pretty logo for your website versus strategic PR, where you're trying to share the right story with the right audience to create an action, right? Forbes has 1,200 contributors on Forbes. Each of them probably writes about once a week, which means every week, thousands of articles go live on Forbes. And if you expect your article out of the thousands of other ones to be the one that brings in all the money and all the sales and all those leads, it's not going to happen. It's got to be about the angle. So I always talk about sharing a story that builds rapport with the audience, where they connect with you on a more intimate level than he can fix my bank account. It's he understands me. He's been where I am. He's experienced this struggle. He knows how bad it hurts. Because as entrepreneurs, we're all solving a problem, whether it's financial, health-wise. We are all solving a problem. That's what entrepreneurs do. But in order to solve the problem, first they need to be aware that the problem exists. And then they need to understand that you've experienced the same problem and have come out on the other side.
That makes actually a lot of sense, because I do believe that, like, number one, what you just said, you have to solve a problem and you have to relate basically to your audience. And because at the end of the day, it's still the same thing, regardless if it's just social media or if it's PR. At the end of the day, they all care about the audience being served, right? Like even your story, of course, serves a specific audience. And I love the fact that you actually mentioned that. So I want to get a little strategic, more towards the tactical part. When do you think is the best time to get PR or media exposure? Is it during a launch of a product or service? When you decide let's say you want to write a book, or you want to just start getting on more podcasts? When do you think, like, from a strategic standpoint, is good to actually start getting, the plan in place? As I know you have a 9-step plan for getting all, nicely done in a strategical way. When do you think is that, perfect moment for somebody that wants to get PR exposure?
As soon as you have a story, a message honed in, your identity figured out, and a marketing strategy put into place, right? What happens is a lot of people come to me and say, hey, Andrew, is it the right time for me to do PR? And I always ask them, what's your marketing look like? If you don't have a way to capitalize on the traffic that you're going to get from that PR, there's no point in PR. You always have to have marketing in place first. If you don't have marketing in place, don't do PR. But as soon as you have your story, your message, your identity, and your marketing in place, you can start right away. You don't have to have experience. You don't have to be this guru. You don't have to be Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg to get in the news anymore. What you have to have is a good story, a good message, and you got to make sure you can capitalize on the exposure that you're going to get from it. And keep in mind that PR is not just getting on Forbes, Entrepreneur Inc., or Fox News or ABC. It's getting on a podcast. I've made more money off of podcast interviews than I've made off of getting on Entrepreneur, Forbes, Inc., all those other ones. So a lot of times people discredit the value of getting onto a podcast, whether it's a podcast, and oftentimes like big podcasts like Entrepreneur on Fire is not worth your time because they get daily content flooded into them all the time. If you go after smaller podcasts with more niche audiences and really spend time connecting with the host and sharing a good story and giving some great input and advice, you're going to make more money. I made $10,000 off of one podcast interview 2 days after I did the interview, and that was with one client. So the reality is it's there, right? And we have to realize that PR is not just the big news. Don't discredit the small things, and always start small. Don't start a business, build a website, and then go after Good Morning America. Like, start a business, build a website, and then go after a podcast. Get on some guest blogs. Start your own podcast. Do those steps before going after the big.
No, I love it, man. And just the fact that you mentioned, don't try to go after PR if you don't have a marketing system in place. And for people that, that listen or consume this episode and they may not understand what that looks like that can be anything from, just a lead magnet, being able to collect people's information like a name, email, and or phone number, or have a webinar in place, and then just amplify that with a good story into the PR. Am I right?
Yeah, and making sure, I can't say how many people I've done PR for that don't even have a pixel on their website. If you don't have a pixel, don't do PR, because you're not going to be able to retarget that audience that come visits your website. And understand, if the first time someone hears about you is on some media outlet, you've built instant trust. It may not be the highest level of trust, but they trust you more than if they saw a Facebook ad, because everybody can send a Facebook ad to them. But you were on a show that they listen to or they watch or they read or whatever, which builds that trust. And if you're not capitalizing on that trust and pixeling them so you can retarget them with a lead magnet or a webinar or whatever else, you're losing out.
No, that's so true. And I hope everybody that's just listening or watching this understand. So I got this question from one of our listeners when I said that I'm going to interview you. and they said, all right, can Andrew break down the difference between paid content into a media outlet versus organic content like the story or somebody or somebody just sharing their story and their message without necessarily paying directly for paid, for the sponsored content, right? Because I think even myself, until probably about a year ago, I was still confused a little bit. I thought it's almost the same category, but now is like when I really looked and I understood more the concept of it. But I want to hear it from you. If you can break it down, like what's, the main difference between those two, not necessarily outlets, but from those two, I guess, business models.
Yeah. So the best way I explain this, because I get this question often, is think about it as this way. If you have a landing page where you're talking about yourself and how awesome you are, that's one route. But if you have a landing page where someone else is talking about how awesome you are, like a customer, a testimonial video, if it's more, they hear more from the people that you've helped or the people that trust you than they have from yourself. It's a whole different perspective, right? We can all sit here and talk about how awesome we are and the results we create and all that, but it doesn't mean anything because it's coming from us directly. If it comes from a customer, it's the same thing. If you have someone applying for a job, yes, they're going to talk themselves up, but what did their previous boss have to say about it, right? Like what do their references say about their personality and their work ethic and all that stuff? So it's the same thing. There's a big difference between earned media and paid media. Paid media means anyone can put an ad in Forbes if you have the money. Anyone can run an ad in Entrepreneur Magazine. Not anyone can get interviewed in the media. It's earned. You have to earn that place, which means you have to have a good story, means you have to be relevant to what they're talking about, means every reporter, real reporter, I'm not talking about contributors or freelance writers, I'm talking about real reporters have to fact check before they write a story. They have to prove whatever they're stating. So if you are in the news, it's because that reporter had to fact check, which means the audience watching that or reading that or whatever is going to trust you because they know that that reporter had to fact check before talking about what you said or what you do. So it's a different rapport that you're building with an audience when you're running paid advertising versus earned media.
Awesome. No, that's exactly how I guess I wanted to hear from you, right? Because especially the beginning, it's one thing when you talk about yourself, and then it's another thing if somebody else talks about you. That I think that's the easiest and the I guess the best way to approach it. You mentioned, all right, you have to earn almost like to earn the right to be featured. How are you able to find the contributors or the reporters, or how, what's a good maybe model, right, to think about it? Do you need to connect with, and of course you have to do your research and understand like which media makes more sense for the type of content that you have, for the type of story that you have. But then is there a process like, all right, if you start sharing your story in this way and then you start, maybe researching contributors or researching editors or researching like who's the first person that you try to get in touch with after you have your story dialed in?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is I'm going to back up and just explain the difference between two types of PR strategies, right? You've got one, which is what the majority of PR firms do. What they do is they write a press release and they send out an email to a contact list of at least 2,000 reporters. And I call this the spray and pray method. You just send it bulk email out and hope something bites. Majority of the time, you're not going to get much unless it's just super intriguing, extremely relevant to something going on right now, or if it's, Tesla, Apple, or Facebook. Like they can do that and it will work. But you or I, we can't do that. They don't know who we are. And so we don't go that route. We go the very strategic route. We go and we send individual pitches to individual reporters who are most likely to be intrigued by that story. So what you do is you go to entrepreneur.com, click on the search tab, type in your keyword, whatever it is that you're teaching about, whether it's health, financial planning, whatever it is, right? Marketing, Facebook advertising, social media management, whatever, and you find people already talking about that subject and you pitch those people because you don't have to change their mindset. They're already interested in the subject. However, the biggest mistake most people make, and the reason that most people will never get featured, is because in their first email, they talk about themselves and how they should do a story about them and my amazing strategy. And if you talk about me, I'm going to teach your audience this, this, and this. Problem is that's like going up to a girl in a bar and saying, hey, you want to go home with me? Before you introduce yourself, before you get to know about them, before you show any interest in them, you just go straight in and ask them to go home. That's not how the world works, right? That's not how people work. We forget that reporters are human beings, not a business tool. So we got to stop treating them as business tools and treat them as human beings. And so every time we pitch, in the first pitch, it's a two-step process, right? And this is the first podcast I've ever shared this on, and I'll explain why in a minute, but I've never shared this publicly. We have a two-step process. I used to do a one-step pitch. It was called the perfect media pitch. It works great. I found one that works better. And the first pitch is what we call the relationship pitch. I don't talk about my customer at all. I don't talk about myself or whoever I'm pitching at all in that email. What I do is I compliment them. I prove to them that I did my research. And at the end of that email, I say, after doing all this research, I really feel like I have a story that would really intrigue you. Do you mind if I tell you about it? Right? So what they do instead is they're giving me permission to pitch them. They're going to pay a lot closer of attention, and they're most likely to say yes if they ask me to pitch them instead of me just blindly pitching them. Right? So it's changing. Yeah, PR is all about psychology. If you make them feel like they are in control and they have the power and they're asking you for the pitch, it increases the chances of getting a yes, versus just going straight in and saying, hey, I got a great story. This person's changing the world. You should write about it.
Boom, mic drop. I really love number one, I love the fact that you shared this strategy on my podcast first. So I'll quote you on this one on all the platforms. But yeah, thanks so much for that. And that makes a lot of sense. Like I recently have been to an event with Pete Vargas. You probably know him. And they were talking about a similar approach when they go off to conferences and talking all the time about the problem that they solve. So in this scenario, what you just shared is, and I love the asking for permission part. I think that's the most, like, the smartest approach that I've ever heard. Just because when they say yes, like, it's almost a no-brainer. Like, what are the next steps after that? Because of course, if they wanted to hear the story and they confirm that, it's just incredible. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. So we got the story dial in. We understand who is the most likely to want to talk to us in terms of contributors. We reach out to them. They say yes. What would be a next step after that?
The next step is to schedule the interview, right? And the biggest problem that I've faced, so I've worked with influencers from every different space. I've worked with big name people to people you've never heard of and everywhere in between. I love the people that you've never heard of. And it's because they are much more willing to work around a reporter's schedule. They're much more appreciative. The problem with the big guys is they think that everybody's schedule should work around theirs. Understand that when you're going after the media, that they are above you in this moment, right? Because you have to bend to their schedule. They don't have to bend to yours. You're not Tesla. You're not Mark Zuckerberg. You're not Elon Musk. You're not Steve Jobs. Like, you're not any of these big people who can control when a reporter will talk to them, right? We aren't at that level. So we have to put our ego to the side and we have to stroke their ego, right? We have to bend to their schedule. Find a way to make whatever time works best for them, make that work in your schedule as best possible. Most of them will have a calendar link, or if they don't, they'll tell you a few different times. I normally ask for 2 times and I'll at least make one of those work, but always bend to their schedule, because what they're doing for you is a lot bigger than what you're doing for them, right? They can find a story anywhere. They're interested enough to share your story, so you got to respect them enough to bend around their schedule and make it work for them.
Awesome. And also, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have to understand the level that we at when we try to pitch, the story to somebody or a huge media publication. If we didn't have a bigger impact before that, or something of any nature, I guess we need to respect the level that we at, right? Like when we go after specific. Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, all right, we got the interview. We shared the story with them. We then wait to see when it gets published. I want to hear from you. Maybe how do you amplify it after that? I have a few ideas, of course, but I wanted to hear from you because you're the expert, and you've been doing it for so long and with so many different levels. That's what I love about you, is you didn't just work with big names, you also work with, like you just said, people that we've never heard about. And what's the next step after that story gets published?
Yeah, the biggest thing is ROI, right? That's the biggest question everybody always asks. The one reason people don't focus on PR is because they don't see the ROI, right? You got to think long-term. PR is not a short-term game. PR is not Facebook ads where you can put $1 in, get $2 out. It's a long-term vision. It's a long-term game. It's something that only the big people with big visions do, right? I mean, if you think about Coca-Cola, United Airlines, American Airlines, all these big corporate companies, they have PR divisions because they understand the long-term effect of it. However, there is a way to amplify it, right? And the reason I just shared with you the first time I ever shared our secret, strategy that I never shared outside of that is we created a software that makes this all real, and it's going into beta within the next week or two. And if y'all want access to that, you're going to have to subscribe to this podcast so he can tell you when it goes live, because I'll let him know when it does. But the software, what it does is you use a link shortener inside of the software. You attach your pixel to that link shortener, and you run paid traffic directly to your earned media piece, whether that's Forbes, Entrepreneur, Inc. If it's a podcast, it doesn't matter. Run paid traffic to that earned media piece. And if you do that, what you're doing is you're creating that trust, and you do this with a cold audience. So the first time they hear about you is Forbes. So let's give an example, right? Let's say I get you in Forbes and it goes live, and then I get you in Inc. and then I get you in Entrepreneur. So you got Inc., Entrepreneur, and Forbes, 3 pieces you're ready to amplify. What you do is you run one ad to a cold audience to the Forbes piece, because Forbes has the largest audience. And then you retarget anyone that clicked that article and went to read that article. You retarget them with an Entrepreneur piece. And if they click that article and they go read that article, you retarget them again with an Inc. piece. So now every time they're logging into social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, whatever, they're seeing your face in another media outlet. There you are again. There you are again. There you are again. But this time, it's not you just doing videos talking about yourself. It's you in the news. And every time they see you in the news. What you're doing is you're making yourself a celebrity in their eyes, because we can do that now with power of technology. And then after they see the Forbes, Entrepreneur, and the Inc. article, then you retarget them with your lead magnet or your ad or your service or whatever. They trust you now because they've seen you in the news numerous times, not just once, not just some random feature, but over and over and over again. Now they see you as an influencer, as a subject matter expert. And so they know that they can trust you.
No, that's like legit fire, what you just shared right there. Of course, we and a lot of other guests have talked about retargeting and other aspects of the remarketing process. But what you just said is, of course, creating that authority, and not just authority, almost like a celebrity status, because people will see you on and on and on, but they don't just see you, they see you featured in all these big media publications. So that's like super, like you add those layers before you ask people to jump on your webinar or to jump on a one-on-one strategy session with you, and literally you create all kinds of rapport with them before they even jump on a call. So I love that. That's super powerful. So you shared something about the software that it's about to launch, and of course we'll make sure we give people more details once they subscribe to the podcast. But why don't you share with us a little bit what that software will actually do? Because I'm pretty sure it's more than just shorting the link or being able to retarget with a pixel.
So this is actually the first time a software like this has ever existed. It's never existed before. What we have, the link shortener is how to create an ROI out of it. But the beta test, which is about to go live, is an automated pitch generator. So what it does is that relationship pitch I told you, what you do is you go into the software and you answer a few questions on the form about that reporter. Questions that you would find from their author profile on their website and from their LinkedIn profile. You just go in, you do a little bit of research, you answer some questions, you press submit, and it generates an automated pitch directly to that reporter for you. And then all you have to do is copy that pitch and send it out. And it does that every time. We will have different templates for different types of media outlets, from podcasts to television to magazines, even to influencers. I've heard back 3 days ago, I heard back from Seth Godin the same day I sent him a pitch. I heard back from Mark Cuban the same day I sent him a pitch. Actually, Mark Cuban, I heard back from 2 minutes. Seth Godin was about an hour after I sent him the pitch. And so it works not just with podcasts, but it works with big name influencers that you think would never respond to your emails. It works with everybody because, again, what we did is a complete opposite route. We proved to them that we know who they are as professionals and all that. So it's a whole different world. And that's all it does is you're able to go log in, answer some questions, it generates pitch before you send it out. That's the beta test. Eventually, we're going to have an entire database where you can type in a keyword in a media outlet and it will pull up those people who talk about that at that media outlet. This is in the future. We'll be able to make it where you can create and run ads directly in the software to Facebook and things like that. So when you get that earned media piece, you can just make the ad there in the software and run it on social media. All that stuff is way in the future, but the automated pitch generator and the link shortener it's what I'm most excited about, right? It's what we created for my team to use, and now we're opening it up to the public.
Awesome. That's number one is not just a time saver, but it's also, a specific kind of like a sniper email straight, a sniper approach straight to the person that you're trying to approach. And I guess that's super powerful. I can't wait to take a look at it and actually start using it. I know we're getting close to wrap things up in here. If it would be for you to maybe lay down, I kind of don't like the word blueprint necessarily, but if we would have a simple process for people to follow, right? If somebody's just, for the first time getting familiar with the PR and the media world, and they, let's say they validate their story themselves already. So they know, okay, my story is legit. It's most likely this type of media publication is able to publish it. What would be like a short, couple steps process for people to actually follow starting with tomorrow?
Yeah, step one is figuring out what media outlets you want to go after, right? Oftentimes we think about our own dreams. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be in Forbes. I want to be in Inc., but I own an ice cream shop. Why? That's not going to bring in customers, right? I'm not saying in PR, you never say no. Never say no to a podcast, never say no to an interview, as long as you know it's not going to be negative. Whenever I talk to customers, a lot of times everybody's like, I want to be in Forbes. I've talked to dog walkers, dog trainers who say they want to be in Forbes, and I always ask them why. I mean, I get it. I understand it's a dream, but where are your customers, right? If you're a local-based business, don't focus on Forbes right now. Focus on your local business journal. Focus on Fox News, ABC, CBS, PBS, whatever you have there locally. Get on the local media first, the local newspaper, business journals, all those things, right? Learn more about your avatar first. Find where they are, be where they are. Right? Be in the outlets that they trust, not the outlets that you just dream of being in. And then once you figure that out, go and search, find the people that talk about your subject, start with a relationship pitch, prove to them that you know who they are, and ask them for permission to pitch an idea or an angle to them. But don't just say, hey, I read your piece, it was great. By the way, I got a great story. Dive in, go into LinkedIn, look at their career, talk about when they first got into becoming a reporter, talk about their last job, talk about how quickly they got promoted, congratulate them on their promotion 4 months ago, right? So you got to get in detail. It sounds stalkerish, but as long as it's professional, don't talk about family or any of that, but as long as it's professional, all you're doing is proving to them that you took the time to learn more about them before blindly emailing them. I talked to a Fortune reporter that gets 300 plus pitches a day from Fortune. That's just Fortune magazine. Imagine, how are you going to stand out from the 300 other people that pitched that reporter that day, right? This is the one way to do it. That Fortune reporter called me to thank me for the way that we pitched him. I didn't even pitch him, my team did. He wanted to talk to me and thank me for what I taught my team to do. I've had nothing but compliments from the media for doing it this way. And then once you do that, now you're on your way to success. Just make sure that you do your research and prove to them that you know who they are.
Yes, no, I really love this tactic. And the reason I say that, not too long ago, I took an offer from you guys where your team actually did the research for, I won't say the name, but did the research for somebody from Entrepreneur, and they actually did the pitch for me. I sent it myself, but I literally just changed just my name and a couple of things in there. Like the rest, I just copied and pasted. And literally the response that night after I sent it to that contributor was, it's been almost like 3 years since I've actually booked a call with somebody that just reached out to me, from a call standpoint, because we never knew each other before. And I talked to him next day. So I can definitely endorse this strategy, because the next day I was on a video call with him, and we are about to collaborate in like a whole different level now with cross-promoting services and products. So I can definitely endorse the strategy, but I wanted to hear from you before I actually endorse it. So yeah, I strongly believe in that now. And just the fact that he said, because he's probably getting pitched, like you said, a couple hundred times a day, if not, a week, whatever. And he said, the way that you reach out to me, I don't think anybody reached out to me in the past like 5 years or something like that. So that was powerful just to hear that from him. All right, man. So you shared some really powerful strategies with me, with the audience. And of course, your story has like an insane impact just when I heard and just now when I remember. Where can people learn more about you, about what you do, or what do you like to connect with other people that want to maybe, all right, what could be maybe a next level that I can either work with your team or just get some of the resources that you guys have out there?
Yeah, the best thing to do is just follow us on social media. It's Business Publicist. So if you just look on facebook.com/business publicist, you'll find our Facebook page there. And if you have questions, you have anything, my team is always there to answer any of your questions. I hop on the phone with every customer that thinks about doing business on specific levels. If you have questions, I'm not one of those guys that pretends like he's too cool to talk to everybody. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone that wants to talk. That's it. Just the social media channels, Business Publicist. You can find websites on there. Look at our ads. Now on Facebook, you can see our ads. Go look at our ads. You can see what we are offering inside of there. Different landing page with different offers. But the biggest thing, definitely keep an eye out on this podcast on Marian, because I will be sharing with him as soon as the software goes live. And maybe we can get him to do a live demo of him using it for the first time so he can show it off to everybody.
100%. That would be legit, man. And we'll make sure we'll list everything that Andrew just shared with us, like all the links to social, to Facebook, Instagram, and also their ads. I'll actually make sure I'll do a couple of screenshots and I'll put it in the description below so you guys can actually access it easily. All right, man. Again, thank you so much. I'm really inspired by your story and by everything that you shared with us today. Thank you so much. And we're actually looking forward to do a follow-up not too long from now, depending, of course, for all of you guys that are listening or watching this when you're going to consume this episode. But I'll make sure I actually put in the description below. As soon as we go live with the other one, with the follow-up with the software, we'll make sure we'll list it in the description below. Again, thank you so much. Really appreciate you, man. And we'll definitely stay in touch soon.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Andrew O'Brien and you feel more comfortable now on what is the process of getting more media exposure for you, for your personal brand, for your business, and so on. All right, and if you like the episode, don't forget to subscribe to the show and also leave me a review, an honest review, and then send it to me because that's the way to enter our monthly giveaway. And don't forget, guys, if you like this one, you may want to listen to the previous one with Evan Carmichael, where we talk about how to grow your YouTube channel. We've had an insane number of people messaging me just because of that episode alone. All right. Thanks a lot for listening, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Hey, podcast listeners. I want you to know that I really appreciate your attention and I don't take it lightly. That's why each month we pick a lucky winner and we give away books, mentorship, software, courses, iPads, and other cool stuff. The way to enter is go to clientacquisitionpodcast.com and sign up. You'll get all the details there. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.